Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You are watching my YouTube channel 786 English Point. In today's video, we have an essay of Edward Said, Culture and Imperialism. We will talk about it, investigate and examine, and we will come to know the very interesting realities of the present world and even the past world. In this essay, Culture and Imperialism, Edward Said shares with us. What he shares with us, I will share with you in 5 points. Point number 1 is the Western cruel thinking of ruling in the light of historical facts and figures. Secondly, in 19th and 20th century, this system of imperialistic activities started very fastly. This will also be described in it, and culture and imperialism definition will also be included in this video. So let us see in detail one by one that what is culture and imperialism and what is the cruel thinking of Western countries. Western countries are very much royalish and cruel in their behavior and thinking. So they do not hesitate to run over madly over the Asians and African countries to plunder their resources, to plunder the resources of the poor masses of the third world countries. So for their personal benefit and advantages, Western countries do not hesitate to commit any kind of atrocities. So these imperialistic giants, there are 3 countries, British, France and America. They do not hesitate to commit any kind of atrocities in poor countries. They madly run over them, they plunder their resources, and secondly, they do not hesitate to exploit them, the poor people, the poor masses of the poor countries, morally, socially, culturally and religiously. Even they are dominated on the poor countries of the third worlds. And secondly, Edward Said very seriously and in a very scholarly way criticizes those colonies which were established and maintained by the British in 19th century and in 20th centuries. So these imperialistic countries, Western countries, they raise a slogan that they will provide civilization and peace and progress in all the fields of life to our poor countries. In this way, they entered in those countries and start ruling over them. So this was their policy, is a dual policy, is a double-faced policy of British that has been exploiting the poor nations. But the fact is, the slogan they raise that they reform the poor countries, they will give them progress and development. So this progress, development and civilizations, they just keep it only for their own country's masses. This is the dual policy of the British. But Edward Said, after deep investigation of this matter, share with us and criticizes these colonies of 19th and 20th century. On the other hand, the Western people think that they are superior in their race, in their ideology, in their social system, in their economical system, etc., etc. And we have a very strong example that the British people have a very particular thinking in the past that they are superior and they are born just to rule over the world. This was their arrogance and pride. So that arrogance and pride has been ended. I mean, the system of colonies have been finished, and now the same arrogance and proud is found in America, who is at the same position of our next point was, what is culture and imperialism? Culture and imperialism's definition is very simple, but it needs to understand. Imperialism means the practice, the theory and the attitude of a dominating metropolitan center that rules a distant territory. I can explain it in a simple words. If a rich city or a country is applying his thinking, applying his theory, applying his attitude on poor countries with reference to civilization, culture and society, that means that is called Culture and Imperialism. But in it, the force is very compulsory, that the Western people, as we read, that the Western people with their force, they entered in a poor countries and they dominate over them, ran over madly and occupy them and plunder their resources. So Edward Said criticizes the Western influence in the third world countries, and because they exploit them without any hesitations, and the Western countries also try to apply their literature and culture over poor countries, whereas every nation in the world is independent. They can live according to their culture, their religious ideologies, and their literature. But Western countries do not like it, because they have an aim to impose their cultures on the poor countries, because they have forcefully occupy over them and they force them to adopt their culture and their social systems, but which is not possible, which is totally against the human freedoms. So Edward Said, in a very beautiful word, appreciates and gives us some references of Edward Said's in this essay, that Joseph Conrad is a Western writer. His novel Heart of the Darkness also explains imperialistic and negative and cruel and ruthless activities of ruling of the Western countries. Then Jane Austen's novel Mansfield Park also described the same negative and ruthless thinking of the Western countries. Then Cheney Ashby's novel Things Fall Apart also describes before us the imperial and cruel activities of the Western countries. So our present writer Edward Said says that these are those facts which were disappeared from the eyes of the people and the world, which he has been described in this chapter. In 20th century, it was noticed that the Western countries, by hook or by crook, they can see it, and we are also the witness that in 20th century most of the countries have got their independence, their freedom from the occupied countries, but in actual they are still under the influence of those countries, because they take loan from them on a very tight conditions from the World Bank. Through World Bank, the Western countries are ruling over these poor countries to give them loan on a very tight condition, and in this way the underdeveloped countries remains always dependent to the independent countries of West. So Edward Said is of the view that the system of colonies is over, now the imperialism is going on, and this in today's world the imperial giant America is trying to expand his land empire, and for this purpose he is violating all rules and regulations of the world and the people, the masses, and their civilizations. But he is of the view at the end that as a human beings, all cultures, civilizations are independent. So we need to maintain a balance socially and culturally, so that all the nations forget about their national identity and they may come under or at the platform of humanity, from which all human beings can equally get an opportunity to promote their culture, their social orders, their religious practices, and their moral values. So this was a very small summary, you may call it introductory summary, of Culture and Imperialism's an essay of Edward Said. Thank you very much. See you next time with next video. Bye bye.